From the castle in Owings Mills, it is the Banner Ravens podcast. Paul Mancano, Jonas Shaffer, joined by Baltimore Banner's own Childs Walker. We are here to discuss the late-breaking news that we have seen Lamar Jackson with our very own eyes on the practice field. We'll talk about what we saw from him today in our limited access during media viewing. We will also play a fun little game where we talk about who we trust on this team the most and who we trust the least. And of course, we are going to preview Sunday's game against the Chicago Bears. All that and much, much more. First, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
For the fifth year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time. All right, guys, we are here at the castle. We have just witnessed a little bit of Ravens practice, and we are going to hear from some of the players and John Harbaugh in just a bit. But I first have to read out a review. I believe the two times that we've had Childs Walker on this podcast, we've taken up some of his precious time by reading out a review that has been written on Apple Podcasts. This comes from the Compton Effect. It says, I discovered this podcast at the beginning of the season, and I have really enjoyed each episode. Paul and Jonas's personalities work well together, and it's great that they have other Banner reporters come in to provide additional insight and thoughts. I look forward to each new episode. Thank you. If you write us a 5-star review, I'll read it out here on the show. And Childs is one of those other Banner reporters.
One of my great aspirations in life has been to be an other. So thank you for that.
Just other. Jonas disappeared briefly if you're watching live on X or on Facebook or YouTube in order to help somebody open the door. That was very nice of him. But he is going to, unfortunately, have to spend his time with us over the remaining, 30, 40 minutes. Guys, let's talk about the breaking news that we just witnessed. Lamar Jackson, who has missed the last 2 games and a quarter. He is back on the practice field. Childs, you had your eyes on the offense today. It was kind of a dramatic entrance for Lamar Jackson.
It was. I think had all sort of crossed him off of our little sheets that we used to take attendance. And then I was standing right by the tunnel where the kids cheer when he comes out for the summer practices. And lo and behold, there he came by himself. He trotted out. I will say it did not look like he was moving entirely comfortably. Looked like he was still a little tentative on that injured hamstring. And we did not see him. We saw him do some warm-up throws, but not as many as the other 2 quarterbacks, Cooper Rush and Tyler Huntley. He was clearly still, operating behind them in the drills. But it did seem like the other players were certainly happy to see him. It almost felt like they didn't know he was coming out. I mean, he kind of dapped up Patrick Ricard, who's also, of course, coming back from an injury. Got a big hug from Todd Monken, who undoubtedly would be delighted to have QB1 back in the mix as he's making the plan for Sunday. And so, I mean, look, this was the big question we were all waiting to answer today. I mean, it casts a shadow over everything else. So, I mean, just seeing him trot out, even in a limited fashion, and I would imagine he will be limited on the injury report. I would be surprised if he wasn't. Has to be a big exhale for everybody around this team because there really is no path back without him. So even if that path doesn't necessarily start on Sunday, it's way too early to say if that's the case or not. Still a big deal just to see him come out.
Yeah, I messaged Jonas last night and asked if we did not see Lamar Jackson out here on the practice field today, because we didn't see him on Monday, the last time that we were here. What percentage chance would you put at him playing in Sunday's game? And you said about 40%.
I think you said 40.
I said 40. You said 20. So 20%. So the odds of him coming back, if he did not practice today, were slim. And that still, as you said, Charles, doesn't mean that he's going to be out there on Sunday. But it certainly is a positive sign, and it is something that this Ravens team's absolutely needed. Some of the other injured guys out there, guys, I don't take this kind of attendance that you do every time. Did you see Roquan Smith out there recovering from his hamstring strain?
Yeah, we saw everyone but Tavius Robinson and Marlon Humphrey, whose absence was a bit of a surprise.
That was the surprise today. Was that no Marlon?
No Marlon after he talked on Monday, and interesting change of tone from Marlon Humphrey after, we had heard earlier in the season him repeating the line that John Harbaugh had given his own team about the defense not being mature enough. He kind of distanced himself from from those comments yesterday or Monday, I should say, when he talked with the media. So no Marlon Humphrey out there. Devontae Walker recovering from his oblique injury was out there. Roquan Smith, obviously, with the hamstring, and Chidobe Awuzie with his hamstring strain as well, and Pat Ricard, who could make his season debut on Sunday against the Bears. All very good signs. Tavius Robinson, of course, the timetable for him, about 6 to 8 weeks as he recovers from his broken foot. And then Emory Jones Jr., who I mistakenly wrote in the notes. This is a Freudian slip. I wrote Emory Jonas Jr. Jonas, I'm thinking about you. Just know that.
Even when you're thinking about 6'5", 300-pound men.
Yes, will not be on season-ending IR, according to John Harbaugh. So that is good, but probably not going to be medically cleared for Sunday's game. So it's going to take him some time to get up to speed. Of course, a third-round rookie who is not exactly ready to be thrown into the action. All right, guys, should we do our trust exercise here? I've explained.
I'm ready to fall backward anytime you're ready.
Jonas has come up with this game after our disastrous Blame Pie episode from last week. Jonas concocted this trust exercise here.
I like how you said we're not doing anything without your input, basically saying that like I have to be part of the proceedings, otherwise it won't be a happy camper.
That's true. Last week I wouldn't describe you as a happy camper during that
I was
episode.
Just admiring the fall foliage and the clouds like I am today.
Let's keep your head out of the clouds here, and let's go through several units on the Ravens. We are each going to pick a unit on the Ravens that we trust the most. Then we're going to pick a unit that we trust the least. The options for picking here: pass blocking, run blocking, pass catchers, ball carriers. On the defensive side, pass rush, run defense, and coverage. And finally, special teams. We did not include ball throwers because we don't know the status of Lamar Jackson. But those are your options to pick through. We're going to do a snake order. Jonas, pick of those units the unit that you trust the most, not just for Sunday's game, but the remainder of the season. Which group do you feel the best about?
I'd probably go with the group that has the all-pro running back in the stable and a really good number 2 in Justice Hill and a really good number 3 in Keaton Mitchell. And even though we're not really including Lamar as part of this exercise, he's one of the greatest running quarterbacks ever, if not the greatest. So I'm going to go with the ball carriers. Obviously, their success is hugely dependent, as we've seen this year, on the guys blocking for them and the game scripts that's available to them. You're not going to be giving the ball to Derrick Henry 7 times on a drive if you're down 21 points, like the Ravens have often been in some of the more recent games. But there's just so much trust and equity built up in those guys. And, you put those guys behind the Colts line or the Broncos line. I probably would normally say the Eagles line, but not this year. Then I just think you have to feel really good about those guys. And I think it's probably a fairly safe bet that we're not going to see, knock on wood, the kind of fumbling problems that have befallen Derrick Henry early in the season continue into the second, third, and the final third of the season. So I just feel really good about all those guys. You throw in Zay Flowers as a kind of change of pace option on end arounds. I guess Mark Andrews on the tush push or whoever it's going to be on the tush push. I just think this is such a...
Don't feel great about that.
Yeah, it's such a talented group that if the running blocking turns around, this is, the baseline expectations, the floor for this group has always been a top 5 run game in the NFL. It just has been so far out of whack this year that it feels like some positive regression is due this team.
Yeah, Derrick Henry's still averaging 5 yards per carry. Justice Hill is averaging almost 6 yards per carry. Henry coming off his best game on last week against the Rams, 24 carries, 122 yards. They really leaned heavily into Derrick Henry. Obviously, they only scored 3 points, but it wasn't his fault. He obviously has the ability to break out a game like that at pretty much any opportunity.
And the run blocking was better in that game. I mean, they seem to have figured at least something out, even the guys who've really struggled with that in other games. And I mean, not even just talking about the rest of the season. I mean, this weekend, which is, let's not kid ourselves, essentially a playoff game. I mean, we're talking all these hypotheticals about them getting on track. I mean, those all go out the window if they don't win Sunday. And I think the run game is going to be a huge part of that. I mean, this is not a great run defense. In fact, it's a pretty poor run defense statistically that they're going up against. So, especially if Lamar doesn't play, that would seem to be what they would have to lean on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's going to be a big deal that they carry some momentum over from the Rams game on Sunday.
In a season where everything has gone wrong and so many guys have taken steps back, Derrick Henry looks like Derrick Henry. He doesn't look like he's really taken any step back.
I mean,
at
except
that
the
point.
fumbling, right?
Yes,
I mean,
that's the only,
yeah.
which
But-
is so uncharacteristic.
But I mean, it was so disappointing then to see them in the loss to Houston, right? Where he's there, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with him physically, and they just could not get him any runway, right?
Yeah.
And part of that is Lamar not being there. I mean, we've talked about that ad nauseum, right? I mean, nothing about their running game works as well without Lamar because he has that incredible tractor beam force, even if he's not carrying the ball himself. But I mean, I have we ever seen a Ravens team run as poorly as they did in the Houston game? I can't remember one offhand. So
No.
I mean, I would agree it's what you would trust the most the rest of the way, but it's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be.
It has to be. I'm going to pick another unit where I feel like the talent is there, even though the results haven't been there, and that's the pass catchers. You still have Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, DeAndre Hopkins, Isaiah Likely. This is a group that has all the talent in front of them. Right now, Zay leads the way with 423 receiving yards. And then you've got 4 guys who have under 200 receiving yards. And the last few weeks with Cooper Rush under center, it's not been good. Rashad Bateman has 2 catches in the last 3 games. And obviously that one play where the ball was intercepted on the sideline shot to him that he maybe could have done more for. Isaiah Likely has 3 catches for 18 yards in the 3 games that he has played. He was missing the first several games of the season. Everybody thought him returning would help this offense. It hasn't at all. But if there's a group that I feel like is going to regress towards the mean in a positive way, it has to be the pass catchers. And if Lamar Jackson's back under center, that changes dramatically.
Yeah, and I saw a stat the other day. If you want to find any tiny silver lining in the season, they haven't dropped many passes this year. I think they actually have the fewest drops of any team in the league. So if you want to, that has been a problem in some of their high profile losses in the last few years. So hey, if you want to look for a little reason to trust, there you go.
Yeah. All right, Childs, your pick of who you trust the most.
Now I think it drops off precipitously at this point. Like all the units that are left have shown us significant reasons not to trust them so far. So it's a little. It's a little,
you got
a little bit of shaky ground. I'm stepping.
You got stuck with the worst pick here.
Yeah, well,
Give in to your worst impulses, Childs. Pick special teams.
I'm the other. So I guess I will go with pass coverage. Again, kind of going back to what you guys said about how we looked at the team going into the season. I mean, there was talk that this may be the most talented secondary in the league coming into the season.
It's what Chuck Pagano said, right? The most talented that he'd seen.
He said he had never felt better about a group going into the year. But even, I mean, you look at the various, power rankings that, proliferate in August, and they were at or near the top in most of those. And I mean, all of that talent is still pretty much around and now available to them. I mean, obviously the Jair Alexander signing has not worked out to this point. Will it? I mean, that's a big question mark. I mean, we certainly can't trust in that. But Awuzie has been pretty solid. It seems like he's on track to be back. Nate Wiggins, I think, has been one of the few players who has taken a step forward from last year and has kind of shown the signs that, he could be that Pro Bowl or fringe Pro Bowl player in the next few years. I mean, he's a guy you can trust. The secondary to me certainly looked, I mean, the safety group looked better week before.
Yeah.
With Alohi Gilman in the mix, allowing them to use Kyle Hamilton near the line of scrimmage a lot more. I mean, we had all talked about that, being a way to maybe create more excitement in the pass rush. So, I mean, there was some excitement in seeing that play out. Obviously, we talked about Marlon Humphrey earlier not being in practice. His play has been extremely disappointing this year, and that's a person they were counting on to be, playing at a Pro Bowl level as he did last year. So, I mean, there's elements in that mix, that you don't feel as good about now as you did 6 weeks ago. But all in all, I think there's enough talent there at all the positions that you could say maybe that's a source of strength for them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, even if Marlon's bad or hurt or sick this week or any week, then with the way that they've configured this secondary, like we're back to the 3 safety look. So Marlon, when they're nickel personnel, would be playing on the outside because Kyle's now bumped inside. And I think a lot of Ravens fans would probably feel more comfortable about Awuzie at this point playing at the outside cornerback spot compared to Marlon. And if Awuzie gets hurt, then you have Jair Alexander, who's not been any great shakes this year, but it sounds like he's running faster, more comfortable with this defense. It's been a while since we had any indication that He's had some injury stuff to get over. So the depth there is good. Nate Wiggins, I think, has lived up to the billing. I think Malachi Starks can only get better if what we're buying, well, what the Ravens are telling us about how he's a guy who doesn't make any mistake twice, then he's certainly made enough mistakes that he should be relatively secure in his decisions and his coverages and everything moving forward. So, you just have some faith that this secondary has the kind of turnaround that last year's did. I don't think it can't be as dramatic as last year's was because they haven't had as bad a start as last year's did, but there's at least some evidence that, this group with all the talent that it has can be a, upper 10 unit in terms of just raw ability. Whether that is going to be undercut by the pass rush is a whole other matter.
Yeah.
And to be fair with Starks, I mean, we sort of saw Kyle Hamilton take that arc his rookie year, right? I mean, he had some disastrous plays in his first few weeks, and then by the end of the season was arguably the best player on the field in their playoff game against the Bengals, or at least the best defensive player on the field. So it is possible for a rookie of that pedigree to make that much improvement over the course of the year. You can't say that Malachi Starks is going to be Kyle Hamilton because Kyle Hamilton might be the best safety in the league, but the point is there's multiple guys in that group that you can sort of dream on it.
Yes, absolutely. The scary thing when you look at the schedule, Roma Dunze, obviously in week 8 against the Bears. You got Tyreek Hill in week 9.
No, you don't.
No, he's out.
Oh, he's out. That's right.
Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle. Still a solid wide receiver. Justin Jefferson. Is he still healthy in week 10?
Yeah, he's
and then Garrett Wilson, who knows who's throwing to him in week 12. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in week 13 and 15. DK Metcalf in week 14 and 18. So there are a lot of good wide receivers on the schedule. All right, Childs. Unit that you trust the least. Now you've got your pick of the litter.
Yeah, now I'm a pig in slop.
You can
right?
pick 2.
Yeah, that's right. I think Jonas already alluded to this, and to me, it's clearly the biggest hole in the team at this point. The pass rush. I mean, it has been an outright disaster over the first 6 weeks. Non-existent. They're at the bottom or near the bottom in every metric that measures pressure rate, sacks, hits. I mean, they're just not doing anything really to make good quarterbacks uncomfortable. And you look at the group that they have. I mean, we can look at a lot of areas of the team and say, oh, they're getting this guy back, or they just got this guy back, or maybe they could do this, and you can sort of like generate hope for yourself. I think it's a lot harder with this pass rush group because you're just missing. It's not a lot of talent.
Yeah, I don't know where the help is coming from.
I mean, it was a worry. It was a worry coming into the season, and so much has gone wrong from that point to the point where Tavius Robinson, who I don't think has played particularly well, fracturing his foot is actually a big deal because you just don't have enough sort of quality bodies that you can throw in there. I mean, and is that an area where they can make a move? Say they win this game and they beat Miami on Thursday. Then maybe you're starting to believe in the team a little bit again. You're willing to make some sort of investment. There probably will be some sort of mid-tier edge rushers available. Maybe you go out and get one of them, and that gives you a little hope. But I mean, it is hard to figure. I mean, the Madubuike injury has just been a catastrophe for this team. I mean, we tend to think of pass rush with the outside guys, but I mean, he set up a lot of what they were able to do. He played. I mean, back when Mike McDonald was here, I mean, he was so good at playing off of them. They were so good at playing off of him. So you're missing so much not having him in the mix there. Mike Green has not come along as quickly as we hoped. Kyle Van Noy has not played as well as he did last year. Adafe Owe was off to a poor enough start that they just traded him for a safety, figuring that would be a better way to stabilize the defense. Now, I mean, they could use him again just as a body, but I mean, it just, you go down the list, so few things have gone well there, and it's hard to see with the group they have now how they get it back on track.
Yeah.
And they have a grand total of 3 guys that you could trust to be capable defenders if you want to be charitable to David Ojabo and call him a competent defender at this outside linebacker spot. I mean, it's Mike Green, it's Kyle Van Noy, it's David Ojabo. That's not enough.
Yeah, with Tavius hurt.
I think Detroit went into week 1 with like 3, maybe 4 outside linebackers on their depth chart because of injuries and maybe suspension or something. And people were kind of wringing their hands about, how much trouble are the Lions with their pass rush. And it was a little bit of trouble, but they also had Aiden Hutchinson, and the Ravens don't have anyone close to that level. I mean, I still think Kyle Van Noy is a above average pass rusher, even at, this kind of stage of his career. But there's just no one else who I think you can be confident enough is going to give you 3 to 4 pressures a game at least. I mean, Travis Jones might be a guy who, if there were another interior edge rusher who demanded a double team, could give you reliable pass rush production, but he's busy soaking up double teams most of the time. And I think the Ravens, with Zach Orr and John Harbaugh and their faculty with sim pressures and creepers and just different blitz plans and stuff, can still gin up enough pressure. But this is a team that is reluctant to blitz, and when it has blitzed, just has not gotten home for sacks. I forgot to check, but like as of a couple of weeks ago, they still hadn't recorded a sack while blitzing this year, and they'd tried like over 40 or 50 times. So they're just in a bad place, and I think they're probably not going to be in as many third and long spots where you can really tell just how bad they are, because I do not trust this run defense either. But it's just hard to have any ambition for this team in the playoffs, much less the Super Bowl, with a pass rush this paltry.
I mean, it's very possible that Kyle Hamilton will be their best pass rusher on Sunday, right? I mean, would that be a surprise?
No, but it would be sad.
I mean, yeah, but in some ways, the trade for Gilman sets them up to at least try that, and at least temporarily, that might be a better solution than a lot of this other stuff we're talking about. But that's not.
No, that's not ideal.
It's not a sign of a healthy unit. So I mean, it's bad.
I also picked that similar side of the ball in that similar area, run defense. I mean, the pass rush certainly has been by far the worst unit, I think, but the run defense has also been bad. 31st in the NFL, according to PFF, and same conversation. I don't know where the help is going to come from. They have Brent Urban, who didn't even make the initial 53. He's out there playing 53% of the snaps 2 weeks ago. CJ Okoye is playing serious snaps. Roquan Smith returning is perhaps the biggest possible boon for this run defense, but it still worries me to a degree that I'm putting them in my category for trust the least.
Childs, if this group gets healthy, Tavies comes back, Travis Jones gets over the knee thing, if he hasn't already, Adise Isaac, Kyle Van Noy, all these guys stay healthy. What do you think the potential of this run defense just is in general?
I think, to me, this is the difference with the pass rushers. I could still see them getting to average
I could even see them getting to good,
or even above average. Yeah, that would not shock me. Travis Jones, he's not as overpowering a run defender as you might hope. Based on his stature. I mean, I think probably people dreamed of him being that more than he actually is. That his value actually might be more, as what you said earlier, drawing double teams to set up other guys as pass rushers. But that aside, at least he's a powerful presence in there. Jenkins has been pretty good. Yep. I actually think Okoye has exceeded expectations in that they didn't think he was going to play at all, and they've had to throw him in there, and he hasn't been awful. I mean, he's been serviceable. I do think getting Roquan back. I mean, again, they're not getting a player of that quality back in the pass rush, right? So I mean, that also allows you to project a little bit. So I mean, I don't foresee that being their downfall for the rest of the year, at least. Although I don't see a path to them being dominant in that area as we have expected them to be at their best.
Yeah. Jonas, who do you trust the least?
Man, I spent so much time thinking about how bad those first two groups were.
Those first two groups being pass blocking and run blocking? Or no, those first two groups being pass rush and run defense.
Yeah. I guess I would probably, between pass blocking and run blocking, I guess at this point, I would probably say pass blocking, just because we don't know if this is going to be a week-to-week thing for Ronnie Stanley. Roger Rosengarten's clearly taking a step back. Even if they replace Daniel Failele or Andrew Voorhees, I don't feel great about Ben Cleveland as a replacement. I don't feel great about Corey Bullock as a replacement. Tyler Linderbaum's gotten overwhelmed by strong guys this year in ways that he hasn't in years past. Just the arrow on this group in general is not pointed upward, despite whatever George Warhop told us last week about how he feels like Failele and Voorhees are improving. So it's possible that they come out looking like $1 million on Sunday, coming back refreshed, reinvigorated after this bye week. But there's just so many unblocked pressures, which is something that they didn't really have to deal with last year, probably because they rarely found themselves in second longs because of how efficient they were on early downs. But I mean, even when Lamar was back there, teams were getting to Lamar with like 3.5 man pass rushes. Like how many times did the Denver Lions I've seen the Detroit Lions rush 3 guys, have a spy, and still be able to flush Lamar out of the pocket and bring him down in ways custom seen. So it's been a very, very disappointing season. I don't really like just the potential that they have based on what we've seen so far. I still think you can have some good, you can still have some plus players as run blocking Ronnie and Linderbaum and Rosengarten, and just getting those guys schemed up the right way with inside zone, outside zone, whatever, making use of their quick feet. But at a certain point, just you are what you are technically, and what the Ravens are is a group that gets pushed back way too often or beaten way too often, and the amount of quick losses that they've surrendered this year have just been kind of horrifying.
Well, and you also have to look at it in the context of, I mean, even if Lamar Jackson is back, presumably he's going to be running around back there on a not 100% hamstring. So that makes it that much more terrifying, the idea of, rushers coming at him unimpeded, right? I mean, like that could be any one of those could be the end of the season. I mean, and that's for real. So, I mean, you also have to think about it in that context. And I mean, the Ronnie Stanley thing, I mean, we saw they made him the priority of their offseason, right? Bringing him back. That tells you how he is and how important he was to their conception of having a functional offensive line. And I mean, he's had a lot of ankle problems. He's dealing with that again. So it kind of does feel like it's not just going to go away. Like, it's like maybe he's feeling better than he was 2 weeks ago. But I mean, we've seen him in this situation before. That's a very easy injury to sort of tweak in the course of a game, and it can happen on any play. And so that's just, I do think it's going to be a constant worry the rest of the season, even if he's able to sort of get through at a 75, 80% level. So, I mean, there's so much to be worried about there.
Yeah. And him at 75, 80%, we've seen this year has not been as good as him at 100%. You see the difference.
I mean, when he's tried to give it a go on the bad ankle, it hadn't looked good.
Yeah, it doesn't look good.
I mean, to the point where you felt okay playing Joseph Noteboom, and he's not someone you want to feel okay protecting Lamar Jackson's blindside, right? Like, exactly. That's not okay.
Yeah.
So. And just the trickle down effects from that, I think, are pretty pronounced. I mean, what was it, Chad? Was 2020 the Villanueva season where they just couldn't protect Lamar?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's right. Yeah.
Every single time he dropped back, there was happy feet. And I completely forgot I wrote this story before. I asked John at the quarterback position whether he felt like Lamar was positioned to be a guy who would be somewhat immune to this spate of injury. And he said, yeah, like Lamar's a guy who's been able to stay out of trouble. And then lo and behold, he gets hurt on a play that we still don't know exactly what the heck happened.
It was in a game on which he was being pressured on almost every down, right? So I mean, that shows you the risk that we're talking about.
Right. And it just, the injuries in the back of his mind and the pass protections in the back of his mind and just the urgency to take this team from the basement of the AFC North to the top, all that stuff I think is going to have a compounding effect to put him in a position where he hasn't really been able, where he hasn't in 5 or so years.
Yeah. All right.
And there's no cavalry coming. I think that's a point that has to be made over and over. Like there's
Emory Jones.
I mean, people, right. Fans sort of tried to build hope around Emory Jones. Going into the bye, weirdly, if you looked at Ravens Twitter, there's a lot of people who were like listing the main things that needed to happen to set up the second half. And people were saying Emory Jones. I'm like, come on, guys. Realistically, even if he's healthy, the idea that like a rookie lineman is going to
third-round pick
is going to step in and magically fix stuff when he had no training. That's just not the world that we live in. Like, that's not the way this league works. And every team doesn't have enough offensive linemen. So it's not like there's real trade options out there at that position. I mean, like even if they decide this team is worth investing in significantly, it's not like there's a guy just hanging out there and you say, get him and that'll stabilize things. It's not, I mean, it's a position of scarcity for almost everybody. So there's no magic key.
I think including today, Emory Jones has 4 practices total since the Senior Bowl in which he's been able to pass block.
That's crazy. I mean, you mentioned off the top, you don't have great faith, Jonas, in, Corey Bullock, in, Ben Cleveland coming in. The coaches don't either. That's the scarier thing. The coaches have even less faith because for all the fans that say, well, it can't get worse, throw somebody else, it can always get worse. And there's a possibility that somebody throw in there is obviously they must think it can get worse, and that if you make a switch like that to Ben Cleveland or Emory Jones or whoever, it will get worse.
Yeah, I mean, they've been very clear that their evaluation is their evaluation. I mean, they think they're playing the best guys. I mean, if it were me, would I at least consider throwing Corey Billick in there for a game, maybe instead of Voorhees, to see what happens? Yeah, I mean, I would think about it. I liked what we saw from him in the preseason. I mean, sturdy base. I thought he was pretty solid as a pass blocker. But I mean, again, you're not talking about a real solution. You're talking about a patch on a problem.
Exactly. All right, let's turn our attention to this game on Sunday against the Chicago Bears, because this is a must-win in pretty much the definition of the phrase here. The Ravens sit at 1-5. Now, they are great with John Harbaugh as their head coach coming out of the bye, which is a positive sign. They're 14-3 in games after the bye week. Only the Steelers have a better record in that span. But for all of the pressure that is on the coaching staff, for all the pressure that is on this roster, you can't be 1-6 and expect to run the table. Even if Lamar Jackson is not out there, this needs to be a win. Otherwise, at that point, if they lose on Sunday, I think we are starting to call this season a wrap.
Yeah, I mean, if they lose this game, a narrow path becomes a few pebbles that maybe you try to balance on in a river, but you're going to drown. I mean, like, it's just not, it's happened once in the history of the league that a team started 1-6, 70 Bengals. That's it. So I mean, that kind of tells you right there. Now, I mean, are there contextual reasons to think there's still hope for this team? Sure, we've talked about all of them. I mean, the quality of the division, the ceiling that we think this team still has, given the stars. I mean, all that. But I mean, 1-6, I just have to throw up your hands at that point. And it also speaks to this, what we've been talking about. Like, do you even bother trying to fix this roster at that point? Probably not, right? That's probably what tells you, okay, if anything, we're sellers.
It's the same conversation as the Orioles. There are too many parallels at this point. But the deadline is not the end of the season. It's not the final record you can get to. It's the trade deadline. Because if you don't this team clearly needs help. And if you need to make up your mind by the trade deadline, are we buying or selling? And I've heard a lot of case for them buying. They did sort of bought, I guess, with Alohi Gilman, and that helped. But I feel like when I have those conversations, I'm not watching the same team that person is. I mean, they are not just 1-5. A lot of these games are not close. They are losing a lot of these games by large margins. Say what you want about Lamar Jackson being out, but this team needs to make up its mind about whether they are going to be buyers or sellers over the next handful of weeks. And right now, I have no indication to believe that they should be buyers.
Which for anyone interested, I did a story on just this whole trade deadline thing up right now. If you guys want to check it out. What was interesting to me, Childs, and you will have a better recall of this, or maybe you have a better recall of this. Back in 2015, when they started 1-6, the trade deadline was earlier. Front offices in general were not as predisposed to make trades, especially for high impact players. But the Ravens, even with their horrible start, even with all the injuries that they had, they did not become sellers that year. Like the two trades that they made in season were for depth pieces. I think part of that might have been in awareness that in the next year's draft they would have. I think they finished with 11 total picks, one of whom ended up being Ronnie Stanley, another ended up being Tavon Young. So they knew that there were potential reinforcements along the way, and obviously Joe was under contract for the big money that he was. But it's an organization that is unaccustomed to being in a position where people think you're sellers. I mean, I talked to Mike Tannenbaum last night about this, and I asked him, like, hey, if you're 1-7, is there a possibility that the Ravens bow to public pressure and become sellers? And he's like, I don't think so, just because he thought that with Lamar, with John Harbaugh, with the topsy-turvy nature of the AFC and the AFC North, there's always a potential way back. And, I think everyone watching this podcast would probably disagree with him that you have to be sellers at that point. You can't possibly be afford to be a buyer or in the neutral position. But it's just an interesting consideration that, like, the Ravens, even if they drop these next two, still might not default to being a seller, just because might be a smidge of hope that they feel like there's possibly.
Yeah, I would not expect them to swing all the way to that side. I agree with that. I think that's really in their DNA. I mean, look, every time we talk to Eric DeCosta, basically, when we ask him about the big picture of the franchise. He says, I believe in a window that never closes. Like that's how they view things. And I mean, certainly while you have a franchise quarterback, it makes some sense to look at things that way. That said, I think if there are guys on the roster that if there was interest and they could pick up, a decent pick or whatever, I mean,
it would have to be like equal or superior to what you might get in the compensatory pick game, which of course would not be for another year because of how it'll be for 2027, not 2026.
So, I mean, look, if they lose Sunday, you're going to hear a lot of Mark Andrews talk. You're already hearing some of it. That's certainly probably the first name that would come up. But there's other guys. I mean,
Keaton Mitchell.
Exactly. I was going to say Keaton Mitchell, a guy who, starts to get bandied around. I don't know that you get a whole lot for that, but maybe if you get anything, because I mean, this season has sort of told us they don't, with the talent they currently have, they don't really see him being part of what they're going to do. I don't know what would change that. So I mean, that those are names that you're going to start to hear. But no, the idea that they're going to go from being all buyer to all seller. No, I mean, there's nothing about their history where the people involved tell us that would be the case.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Eric DeCosta makes an observation like this every year, so it's not really. I think it'd be unwise to call him prescient, but looking back at what he told us before the season, when he gave his usual state of the preseason press conference, when he announced the Kyle Hamilton deal, like he was asked just about this season, his activity levels, and he said like it's my job to consider the short term, but also to consider what this roster looks like in 2026, in 2028, in 2030. And I think that is something that is going to weigh on his mind because there's a lot of there's a huge roster core of guys on this year's roster who are pending free agents. Think of Isaiah Likely, Travis Jones, Tyler Linderbaum, Mark Andrews, Travis Jones, a lot of guys who could conceivably not come back. And does that make him more willing to punt on this season, less willing? It's a really complex calculus that he's going to have to sort through.
Yeah. All right. In terms of this specific matchup on Sunday, this is Roquan Smith against his former team. This trade between the Bears and the Ravens went down on Halloween 2022. 3 months later, Ravens signed Roquan Smith to a 5-year, $100 million extension. They traded for then 25-year-old Roquan for a 2023 second rounder and fifth rounders plus linebacker A.J. Klein. Gervon Dexter became that second rounder. He's currently the starting defensive tackle for the Bears. And the fifth rounder became Noah Sewell, who also plays a good amount of snaps at the linebacker spot for Chicago. Kind of played down when Roquan Smith talked to the media, kind of played down the emotions that might be flowing through him. Obviously, it's been several years, and obviously he's not playing in Chicago, so that might help this fact. When you look at this Bears offense going against this Ravens defense, you have a revitalized Caleb Williams, first year under Ben Johnson. He's taking a step forward in just about every way, statistically, under the new head coach. But the rushing attack, Jonas, to you is scarier than the passing attack is. Why is that?
Just because you don't have to rely on Caleb Williams. Well, I guess relying on DeAndre Swift to be your bell cow back, I think, is probably as scary as relying on Caleb Williams to
go St. Joe's Prep. I'm not going to besmirch anybody who went to the prep. Also, they have Olamide Zaccheaus. So 2 St. Joe's Prep grads.
Do you want to do the St. Joe's
Prep
fight
song?
Fight song?
Don't tempt me.
No. Well, the chant for Zaccheaus.
Oh, no, I don't. Okay. Go ahead.
Thought I had you there. Like over the past couple of weeks, they've been just lights out good during their 4-game winning streak. 3rd in rushing success rate, 7th in EPA per rush. They went for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns against a pretty good Saints defense on Sunday. They've invested a lot of capital, drafts and money in that offensive line. They
threw everything at that position.
Swung trades for Joe Thuney from the Chiefs. They got Jonas Jackson. They signed Drew Dahlman to a 3-year, $42 million deal. They've just been able to get good push up front. And obviously we all have a huge amount of respect for Ben Johnson. So I think with the amount of Chicago media that we expect to be in the Baltimore press box on Sunday, I think there's going to be a lot of interest and probably a lot of words written and radio segments authored by what Roquan does in this game. I think it's going to be a huge target for Ben Johnson if he feels like he can be taken advantage of. I think it was interesting to see that even with Roquan's time off and some of the defense's shaky play, when the Ravens Twitter put out the video of Roquan from behind focusing on his behind, that there are a lot of people who seized on what they think is an overweight player. And by the way, when I was Googling gluteus maximus, did you guys know that it's the heaviest skeletal muscle in the body?
I think I did. It makes the most sense.
No.
It's got to be the biggest.
Speak for yourself, buddy. But yeah, I mean,
You can always count on a podcast with Jonas going off the rails at some point.
I think Roquan, it hasn't really become a conversation nationally about the state of Roquan Smith and his play. I think the PFF grades have kind of inverted from last year to this year, where last year he was good against the run, weak against the pass. This year he's better against the pass, even though he's obviously had some really rough spots, and weaker against the run. And they just can't have a repeat of that game against Detroit, where he's unwilling or unable to get off his blocks, and they're just running it down Route 1 every single time. So even if Caleb Williams, blows their doors off with a 300-yard passing game, I still think it's hugely incumbent upon Caleb Williams on Roquan Smith to be the manager of this defense and not really let it be exploited the way that we've seen good offenses take advantage of it.
When you alluded to the offseason conversations ahead for this team, all the free agents, but I mean, I think Roquan Smith's future will probably be a part of that conversation as well,
right,
even though he's not a pending free agent. That trade, I think we all would have talked about as one of the best in Ravens history after, say a year and a half, right? I mean, not only did they get this guy who sort of, helped them stabilize so much in 2022, but it seemed like he was sort of, next gen Ray Lewis. He was going to be the leader of, this tremendous versatile defense that really came into its own under Mike McDonald. It was a huge part of that great season they had in 23. But now, he's a guy who's getting paid a whole lot of money to be a pretty good inside linebacker. And that's not really good in NFL economics 2025, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so there's going to be some serious conversations around that. And, he, for the amount of money he's being paid, he really does need to play better over the last 11 games of the season.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the Ravens offense against the Bears defense real quick. Obviously, so much of this comes down to who is starting at quarterback for the Ravens. But Jonas, what do you think about this matchup?
I think it just comes down to, can Lamar, I guess, are we assuming that he's going to play?
I mean, that's the thing.
I don't think we can.
I don't think we can either.
Not 100%. No.
Whoever is out there, you just can't let this Bears defense take advantage of you. 3 turnovers. Like they lead the NFL with 16 takeaways this year. They had 4 turnovers against the Dallas in week 3, 4 against the Raiders in week 4, 3 against the Commanders in week 6, 4 against the Saints on Sunday. The Ravens have 3 takeaways total this year. So they have been boosting up their efficiency numbers that way, but on a down-to-down basis, they are not an especially good defense. And the Ravens have had troubles, whether it's Lamar or Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley. I mean, just kind of poking around PFF, I think from week 2 to week 4, Lamar was near the top of the league in turnover worthy play rate. Just another example of him letting this offensive line get into his head and forcing him into bad decision making mode. And Lamar is vulnerable to that in ways that I think other elite quarterbacks maybe don't have that kind of issue. So we'll see exactly how this Bears defense hangs in there. I think they got a little bit banged up against the Saints. They could be without their top 2 cornerbacks. I think on the other side of the ball, Cole Kmet got banged up against New Orleans. So there's definitely an opportunity if the Ravens can establish the run to really hurt this Bears offense with explosive plays, which is something that they've also been vulnerable to this year. But it's just tough to get your finger on the pulse of this game without us knowing, 1, who's going to play at quarterback, and 2, how healthy they're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what this Bears team does best is sort of not beat itself. I mean, they have a huge positive turnover margin, and they don't commit many penalties. So,
they're also really good situationally. Yeah, right. Red zone defense, third down defense, both elite.
So, yes, there's plenty to attack there, as you say, on the play-to-play numbers. I mean, they give up a lot of yards per play, many more yards per play than they gain offensively. So, I mean, there's what we thought the Ravens were going to be coming into the season, they should have had a field day against this kind of team, right? I mean, they should just be too explosive. But, Jonas said it. We've seen this version of the Ravens do a whole lot of beating themselves already this year, and this is the wrong team to do that against because, I mean, they have taken advantage of that, and that we could easily see that on Sunday. So this is a dangerous opponent, even though there's plenty to attack there. Really, I think on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. All right. We're going to give you our predictions on the other side of another quick break.
For the 5th year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time.
I think it's only fair that for this prediction, we give 2 predictions each. One if Lamar Jackson plays and one if not, because it's still Wednesday and we have no idea yet. My prediction, I have the Ravens losing in both scenarios.
It just doesn't matter.
It just doesn't matter. 23-13 if Cooper Rush plays, 23-20 if Lamar Jackson plays. Given everything that we've seen, maybe some depths from the defense 2 weeks ago, but I have a hard time believing that Cooper Rush or a less than 100% Lamar Jackson will be able to step right in and get this offense humming the way that it did back in week 1. Jonas?
I think I would pick the Ravens if we get Lamar with at least one day of full practice reps. And we should say, like, just because you are a full participant in practice does not mean that you are 100% healthy. It just means that you're getting 100% of the reps. Like, that's just how it works. So I think if Lamar plays, I would pick the Ravens to win like 21-20. Just this Bears offense has improved. This Bears defense is volatile, but you look at some of the advanced stats on Caleb Williams, and Rome Odunze's had like a very high open score on ESPN. DJ Moore has a very high open score, but Caleb Williams near the bottom of the barrel in terms of on target rate, catchable ball rate, and I think that might finally catch up to him. Maybe the Ravens defense finally has a binge-worthy day of turnovers. So I think the Ravens would be able to pull it out if Lamar's back, even if he's like 80% healthy. I just think that he's a better thrower of the ball, a better manager of this offense than Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley.
Hot take.
If he's unavailable, I think the Bears win something like 24-13.
Childs?
Yeah, I think I'm roughly on the same page as Jonas. If Lamar is out there and looks anything close to Lamar-like, I would have the Ravens winning, I think, like 27-20-ish. If he's not there, and I think it would be Tyler Huntley playing quarterback. If he's not, I don't think they go back to Cooper Rush as a starter. That's
wow.
That would be.
We're in a bit of somewhat uncharted waters here, because every time that Lamar's come back from an injury, aside from one time that I can remember, it's been the season after a season-ending injury. Like the one game of Lamar playing but being very obviously limited was that blowout win against the Bengals, I think in 2020. That was the game where the Ravens won because of their defense.
Right.
Like the Bengals, I think safeties were talking about how the only guys that you have to worry about are 5 and 89, basically saying like this team has nothing pass catcher wise besides Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown. The Ravens still won that game because I think they got a decent run game, but like we haven't seen a whole lot of what Lamar looks like when he's trying to mitigate or play through his own injuries, because every time he's come back, it's been in the offseason. Like when Lamar's missed games, typically it's been because of illness. It's not been because of these short-term injuries.
So yeah, if it's Tyler Huntley, a quarterback, I do think they can turn this game into a bit of a gutter fight. I mean, look, this is a playoff game. This is a must-win game for them. I mean, and I would expect them to treat it as such. I would expect the coaches to treat it as such. And I mean, we have seen them be competitive in those sorts of games with Tyler Huntley at quarterback before. They did it in the playoff game against Cincinnati in 2022. So I would pick them to lose. I mean, I think I would have it in like the kind of 20-17 range, but I think it would be a nasty competitive game in which everybody on the field would understand that they were sort of fighting for their season.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go down meekly in this game, then you're basically saying 2025 goodbye.
Yeah. I also am thinking about the Marlon Humphrey potential injury there, and thinking about if Jair Alexander, after playing 0 snaps 2 weeks ago, is on the field at all. If Marlon Humphrey is, and if Marlon Humphrey is not.
But from what we've seen so far, the coaches have told us that they trust TJ Tampa over Jair Alexander. Now, are 2 weeks of extra rehab enough to flip that? Maybe, but we don't know that.
It's just a crazy sequence of events that has led to this at this point, with Jair Alexander being quote unquote fully healthy, playing a significant number of snaps and then going from that to 0 and sitting behind TJ at Tampa is a little nuts. All right. That just about does it for the Banner Ravens podcast. Childs Walker, thanks so much for joining us. You can read everything that Childs writes, as well as Jonas and Gianna and Kyle Goon on thebanner.com, where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months.
Shout out to the Banner.
If nothing else, Childs, you leave this podcast now knowing that in Jonas's recent Google history, gluteus maximus is there.
We had a little caboose talk. Yes.
Not enough in Jonas's mind. For Jonas Shaffer.
I'm a fan of butts. What can I say?
On that note, for Jonas Shaffer and Childs Walker, I'm Paul Mancano. We will have another episode for you after the game on Sunday against the Bears. In the meantime, like, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.